coming. I really appreciate everyone taking some time to come along and listen to me doing what, as it turns out, is actually my first author event. So I've had a couple of events that I've had to sort of cancel for one reason or another. So this one's my first, and hopefully first of many. When I first booked in this event with the wonderful Sarah, I just assumed that an author talk would literally be standing up here and reading parts of the book. But luckily, in this day and age that we live in, I was able to sort of consult Google and AI and all sorts of wonderful things, and sort of asked, you know, what do I do at one of these author talks? So apparently standing here and reading the book is not what people want to hear anymore. Obviously, if you're here, maybe you've already read the book, or maybe you're intending to do so. So what I wanted to do is more sort of talk about, I guess, my journey as an author, by, I guess, starting with the fact that I've always wanted to be an author. I think, you know, from the time I was a little girl, reading fairy tales, I was going to say Wiggles books, but that's my kids, that's not me. But from the time I was a little girl, it was always a dream. And I think it is a dream that so many of us have. It's, you know, these wonderful stories that you lose yourself in as a child, and through every sort of stage of life, the thought of being able to actually create a story that other people can become lost in, it's just something that I've always really dreamt of being able to do. When I was probably in my early 20s, so probably about 25 years ago, I decided that I was going to make my author dream a reality. And I wrote a kid's book about the possums in our backyard. And I'm sure I still have the manuscript somewhere, but I wrote this story, and it was a wonderful short children's story, and I loved it, and I thought it was so precious. And then I sent it to a couple of publishers, and the rejection letters came, and I was devastated, and I put it in a drawer, and I thought, that's it, I can't do this, I don't have a story worth telling. So obviously it was just never meant to be. And so I got on with my, you know, my real career, my sales and marketing career, which ironically is I guess I'm very much a storyteller in that part of my life. But I never really imagined that I had a story to tell until I did. So in 2023, I'm gonna stop and think, I can't believe it's 2025 already. 2023, in May, I gave birth to my beautiful little boy, my second child, after 9 years of trying to have him through fertility treatments and all sorts of things. And one day that's going to be another book. But anyway, so I went to basically literally the ends of the earth to have my little boy. And, you know, he was so wanted, and he, as I said, he was my second child. You know, the first days after you have a baby are not the easiest. You know, there's a lot going on. There's all sorts of, you know, birth situation, and there's hormones, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff. But it didn't take long for me to start realizing that something wasn't right with me. The baby's beautiful. He was wonderful and big, and, you know, had a set of lungs like a champion, and still does at nearly 2. But as the days turned into weeks, I really started to realize there was something not right. I was in a lot of pain. There was a lot going on that I hadn't experienced with my first daughter, almost 12 years earlier. So I started going to doctors and things, and trying to say to them, something's not right. You know, by the time he was about 5 weeks old, I was really aware that I had some pretty nasty medical issues going on. Back and forth for a few weeks. That few weeks turned into probably the most sort of painful, traumatic, maybe 6 or 7 months of my life. I ended up having to have a couple of operations. because of medical issues that happened during his birth that sort of, you know, presented over those few weeks and months afterwards. It got to a point where I considered taking legal action because of the injuries being so extreme. The injuries left me basically in a position where I was facing not being able to have another baby. And, you know, obviously my age and things like that, it's probably not a good idea, but it's something that should be my choice. And that choice was taken out of my hands. So I sort of got legal advice, was looking into it, but then basically was told by a legal professional that you let them use forceps. So basically you asked for this. And I can still remember that like it was yesterday. It was in November 2023. My little boy was 6.5 months old. I'd just had surgery, quite major surgery, a couple of weeks beforehand. And I was really devastated. I thought, I basically have just been told that this was my fault. You know, I did what I was told I needed to do in the delivery room for them to bring my little boy safely into the world. And, you know, that now I'm being told, you know, that my life-altering injuries are my own fault. So I actually put a post on Facebook. I was so beside myself that I went outside and my mum was sitting out in the garden, took the baby outside and gave him to her, and actually wrote a post on Facebook and asked if other people had, I suppose, traumatic births that they were willing to talk about, because I decided, you know, that's it. I'm a person who loves to talk to other people. I'm a person who has a lot of empathy for other people. Maybe I can do a podcast, or, you know, maybe I can do something where I share stories with people. And I actually had such an overwhelming response to that initial Facebook post. I had quite a few women message me and say, I had, you know, telling me these terrible stories that they had. And I thought, this is just, you know, in this day and age, women are, you know, we've been taught that you don't talk about, you know, you don't talk about things that aren't ladylike. You don't talk about, you know, what happens in the delivery room. You're just supposed to be grateful that you've got a healthy baby. And that didn't sit right with me. I you know, after what I'd been through, I felt like I needed to try and be a voice for myself and maybe for other people that, you know, that don't feel comfortable. And I you know, I had conversations with so many people who said, look, I want to tell you my story, but I can't talk to you publicly. I can't do this on a podcast or anything like that. So over the next few days or so, I really thought about how I could frame my story. You know, do I do a podcast, or do I write a book? You know, that old dream of becoming an author sort of came back up again. And I thought, maybe I can. And, you know, the self-doubt that we all carry, you know, especially when it comes to doing something new, something that's scary. And I thought, oh, you know, I can't do that. I can't write a book, but maybe I can get a ghost writer or something like that. But then I just thought, you know what? I'm always teaching my daughter, who is at this point, you know, she's nearly 14. I thought, I'm always teaching her that she can do anything she puts her mind to. So maybe I should practice what I preach and just give it a try. So I wrote the first draft of the book it took about 6 weeks, and I wrote it while the baby slept in my arms, basically on my phone. And I haven't actually gotten out of that bad habit now, a few books later, but anyway. So I wrote that first draft, and it was probably a bit crap, if I'm honest, but I found an amazing editor. We worked on it. We went back and forth for a few months, and it literally ended up being published. I looked down the route again of, you know, I did submit the manuscript once it was edited, and, you know, once we were happy with it, I submitted that to a publisher, just to one. I got the rejection letter, but this time I felt so passionately about this story that I thought, I'm not going to let knockbacks stop me this time. I'm going to self-publish. So I went down the track and found my wonderful publishing partner and published the book, and it's actually been out for about 10 months now, which is unbelievable. I still can't believe that I'm actually a published author. But I did actually, the original story that I wrote had a very fictional element in the second part of the book. As we were editing the book, I realized that it actually needed to be split out into 2 stories. So there's actually 2 books. I've got, hang on, put them in the right order. So I've got copies of them up here. So, but Baby, You're Worth It, which I probably should have mentioned at the beginning of my talk, is the name of the first book. Baby number 3 ended up going from being the second part of the story to actually becoming the sequel to this story, and that was actually published in December. So it's been a very exciting ride. It's been much more challenging, I must admit. I sort of put the first book out into the world and sort of thought that I could sit back and do a few Facebook posts and wait for my millions to come rolling in. So I've definitely had a bit of a reality check where that's concerned, and realized that that there is a lot of work involved. It's really almost writing the book is, I don't want to say it's the easy part, because writing a book is not easy, but I've realized that actually marketing the book, trying to find an audience is another beast, all sort of separate to that. But yeah, look, I mean, the fact that I have been able to fulfill this dream that I've always had of writing a book, and actually my 3rd book has just gone to is just about to go back to my publishers, and we're looking at a May release. Completely new story, new characters, probably, I don't want to say that it's my favorite, because my favorite's always going to be my first book, the one that turned me into an author. But perhaps I should say my 3rd book is going to probably be more relatable for more people. So I'm not going to do any spoilers on that one, but if you have a look at some of my posts, on my Inch Glam Mama Facebook page, or on Instagram, Threads, all the places that I frequent, then you can definitely see a couple of little spoilers there, and that's still to come. But yeah, so I guess that sort of wraps up my talk. I didn't do cue cards, because that's a bit terrifying. I thought rather than actually writing down and getting lost on cue cards and having flashbacks to when I was a teenager in high school, I would just kind of talk to a few points. And so yeah, I hope that I've sort of covered everything. And I just want to say thank you again to everyone for coming along. And I can't wait to hear what everyone thinks of the book.
Yay!